Today on the Big 3 and 30, the Raiders get their next quarterback.
After months of us talking about it, a lot of speculation.
The Jets go with David Bailey at number 2.
The choice was David Bailey of Texas Tech over Arvell Reese of Ohio State.
And the Titans go with Carnell Tate at number 4.
It's what's best for Cam Ward.
This is the Big 3 and 30 NFL, the 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 and 30 NFL starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 and 30 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Fernando Mendoza era is underway after the Raiders took the Indiana quarterback first overall in the draft last night. Your boy Q with Locked On Raiders dives into the selection.
So, after months of us talking about it, a lot of speculation, 99.9% sure that the Raiders are going to select Fernando Mendoza. They have the opportunity to go get their franchise quarterback. Instead of talking about it, on Thursday, the Raiders decided to be about it.
Hello?
Fernando.
How you doing?
John Spytek, how you doing?
I appreciate you calling.
We're going to be thrilled to make you the first pick in the draft here and welcome you to the dark side, my
Thank you
friend.
so much.
So we
Thank you so much. Can't wait to prove it.
yeah, I know you'll do it, and this is an acknowledgement of what a great college player you've been, but a bigger statement on the belief that we have in you that you're the right guy to lead this franchise going forward. And every step of the way you've been exactly what we're looking for and what this franchise needs. And we are so excited to welcome you to Las Vegas and can't wait to get you out here tomorrow. But enjoy the party and the celebration with your family tonight. You certainly earned it. And we'll see you real soon. But there's a lot of hard work. There's going to be tough times and challenging times ahead, but we know you're up for it. And you're going to be awesome here.
Thank you. Can't wait to reward.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to pass you over to Coach Kubiak. But, again, enjoy the night. Congratulations. We're super proud of you. And big things to come, okay? We need your best.
Sure. Love it.
Hey, Fernando. What's up, man? Coach Kubiak
How
here.
you doing, Coach?
I'm doing well. Hey, congratulations. Really excited for you, okay? Now, it's going to be a lot of people telling you a lot of great things tonight, and you earned all those things. But just remember, man, when you get here, be humble and be ready to go to work, all right? You got to go earn a job like everybody else, all right?
Yeah,
All
I'm
right,
excited
man.
to get to work. Can't wait to learn.
You earned this, man. You deserve this, all right? Now just come here and be yourself. Sound good?
Will do. Thank you so
All
much
right.
again.
All right,
Can't wait to
congratulations.
prove it.
You got it, man.
Thank you again. Bye.
With the first pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana.
There was the call right there. GM John Spytek, you heard head coach Clint Kubiak as well, getting on the phone, making the call to Fernando Mendoza to make it official like a referee's whistle. He is the quarterback. He is the franchise QB for the Silver and Black. After months and months of speculation, we've been talking about Fernando Mendoza since about week 15 of the 2025 season, and now he is the guy. He'll be arriving in Las Vegas a little bit later on this afternoon. As a matter of fact, his press conference, I believe, is scheduled for about 1 o'clock. GM John Spytek and head coach Clint Kubiak will speak with the media as well. I'm still here in Pittsburgh, so I won't be available for that, but we'll be headed back to Las Vegas coming up on Saturday morning. But whatever the case may be, we know, in fact, that Fernando is the guy. And with the selection of Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall by the Silver and Black, this is a little nugget that Adam Schefter put out there. The Raiders selecting Fernando Mendoza at number 1 puts him alongside Joe Burrow, Jameis Winston, and Cam Newton as the only QB since 1967 to win the Heisman Trophy, a national title, and go number 1 overall in the NFL draft. So just wanted to pass that along. And look, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people since I've been here in Pittsburgh. I've been on a lot of different radio shows, a lot of different podcasts, just speaking with the media at the draft on Thursday. And man, I mean, everyone, the foregone conclusion is that Fernando Mendoza is going to be that guy with everything that he's got between the ears, with his work ethic, with the way that he wants to be a sponge and learn. I mean, this is such a great opportunity for the Silver and Black. And, look, when you take a quarterback number 1 overall, look, you could take a quarterback in round 2. You could take one in round 3. I mean, DC came out of round 2, right? And everyone still felt pretty good. Like, hey, man, that's going to be a good quarterback. But when you take one number 1 overall or in the top 3, whatever the case may be in round number 1, it just feels different. It gives you a lot of hope, and that's exactly what the Raiders have had. And they've had it with this whole offseason. There's been hope the way that everything has rolled out, the way that the plan has been put in place, and you've seen ever since the offseason really got going that there was an attention to detail with what they were trying to do and they were trying to accomplish, and it all was going to come to a head with the drafting of Fernando Mendoza. And everything that we talked about for the last few months about how much the Raiders can make sure that they put themselves in position to be able to complement him, they absolutely did just that. And now it's all up to Fernando Mendoza to get to work and, make himself available. And the Raiders will decide when that'll be, when he's actually able to get out there on the grass. But, I mean, getting him in the building, you heard what John Spytek said. Hey, you've earned this. Enjoy the night and then get ready to get to work. And Clint Kubiak, I say it all the time, he's about ball. He's about ball. Like, hey, stay humble, stay hungry. Let's get to work, right? We got on a Zoom call with Fernando Mendoza following him being selected. It was probably maybe 30 minutes after he was selected, and got to talk to him for about 15 minutes. And it was nothing earth-shattering, so I'm not going to bring it to the show or anything, but you could just tell that he was excited. He knew that he was going to end up in Las Vegas, but at the same time, until it was official, couldn't guarantee anything because you never know how things play out. But the Raiders, they picked number 1 overall. They didn't trade back into the back end of round number 1. There was a little bit of conversation about that. John Spytek was asked about that, following round 1. He said that there were some conversations about trading back into the back end of round 1, but nothing came to fruition, obviously. So they're scheduled right now to pick 4th in round number 2. That's pick 36, and there's a lot of really good players. We'll talk about them coming up in segment number 2, who I have my eye on for the Raiders, especially at that number 36 overall. But just really excited for Raider Nation. I mentioned it that I was going to get calls and texts and tweets that, now it's official. We got our guy, and that's exactly what I was getting. Shout out to my guy, Vegas Jess. He hit me immediately. Q, we did it. We got our guy, right? And he wasn't the only one. Multiple people hit me up with that because, again, until you actually hear Roger Goodell, say that the pick is in and Fernando Mendoza's the guy, there's always that slight chance. But, man, I'm so happy for Raider Nation. I really am. Just to, see, I walked around the actual theater where the draft was taking place a little bit before the draft and saw a handful of Raider fans, and they were so fired up and excited. Even without the quarterback being in the building, they knew all what was coming and what that meant for the future of the Silver and Black. And just to see how excited and fired up they were just made me even happier because, again, it just feels like the corner is finally being turned with this organization. It's been far too long that the Raiders have been a consistently successful team, and I just think that everyone could really feel it. Now, again, they've still got a lot of heavy lifting to do. Hell, they still got 2 more days worth of NFL draft that they got to get through, and then they've got to go coach these guys up. They got to go out there, win some football games, and get back to commitment to excellence and just win, baby. But, man, it really does feel like the corner is being turned, and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the Silver and Black, and it feels like the right people are in place, from John Spytek, the GM, to head coach Clint Kubiak, and everyone else involved with the Silver and Black, including their quarterback, now official, Fernando Mendoza.
The NFL Draft is here, where preparation meets opportunity and every decision matters. It's all about being ready when your moment comes. And the same mindset applies off the field too. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers treatments designed to help you feel ready and confident when it matters most. Their top option, Rougiette Ready, is a mint that dissolves under your tongue with clinically proven ingredients. And they also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about showing up at your best whenever your moment is. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNFL and get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com /LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Rougiette, Performance Medicine for Men. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, the extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. As we round out the regular season, the Celtics play the Knicks in Madison Square Garden tonight. Line is at -5 on FanDuel. If you want to go the other way, Boston money line is 176, plus 176 on that line. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NFL. The Jets used the number 2 pick on Texas Tech edge rusher David Bailey to add a major piece to their pass rush. John Butchko with Locked On Jets takes you through the decision.
The decision the Jets made at pick number 2. The choice was David Bailey of Texas Tech over Arvell Reese of Ohio State. Now, over the last couple of months, it really felt like it was going to come down to one of those two players. Early in the process, Reuben Bain Jr. of Miami was in the mix, but he kind of fell out the deeper we got into the process. And as we got closer, there was a little bit of buzz about Sonny Styles, but it never felt like he was a serious consideration. The decision always felt like it was either going to be Reese or Bailey. And in many ways, the choice the Jets ultimately made came down to what they truly valued. And I think the decision to choose Bailey tells us that they value proven pass rush ability, because that's what Bailey provides. Bailey had an outstanding final season at Texas Tech, where he registered 14.5 sacks and a very, very high pressure rate. And you may look back to his earlier college career at Stanford, and you may say, well, the sack totals really weren't that good. But if you look under the hood, he was generating pressure at a really high rate. His final 2 years at Stanford, pressure rate was around 20%. And his sack rate was actually pretty similar those last 2 years at Stanford to what he did in his final college season at Texas Tech. In Arvell Reese, you had a prospect with a lot of potential. Reese was an All-American this past year at Ohio State, just as Bailey was at Texas Tech. But Reese brought a different profile because it wasn't really clear what his role was going to be. He was a guy who kind of moved all over the place in college. He was not a full-time edge guy. He did not rush the passer all that much. He spent a bunch of time at off-ball linebacker. So the question was, is he a linebacker who's going to play more off-ball? Is he going to be an edge guy? Is he going to be a hybrid, do a little bit of both, maybe depending on the matchup, play more coverage? It wasn't really clear. But one thing that was clear about Reese is that he was less of a finished product, particularly as a pass rusher. And Reese himself even admitted that he really did not work on pass rushing moves all that much at Ohio State. Now, you could look at this one of two ways. You could say, well, he's got a long way to go. Or you could say, you know what? He was still a really good player, despite not really developing much as a pass rusher. Wait till he gets NFL coaching. Let's see what he can do. Well, the Jets clearly valued pass rushing. And it's easy to understand because looking at the way this defense was constructed over the course of the offseason, one thing was clearly missing. And that's the dominant pass rusher. Aaron Glenn's going to run a defense where the Jets will blitz a lot. So I think they're going to try and manufacture a pass rush. But even if you're going to run a defense like that, you're going to want at least one guy who you can trust to consistently get home. A guy who can consistently get to the quarterback. And that's what I think the Jets believe they have in Bailey. Again, his pass rushing was actually more consistent than the numbers would suggest in college. And I actually think there are some fairly easy fixes NFL coaches are going to be able to do with him to develop him even further. He's already a good pass rusher. I think that with a little bit of work, and I think that sometimes coaches underestimate how hard it is to help a player improve once he gets to the NFL. But players like Bailey, who are already good pass rushers, but maybe just need a little bit of refinement on some of their moves, that tends to be the low-hanging fruit for coaches developing players. And make no mistake about it, the hope is that Bailey is a transformational player for this defense. Is that a fair thing to put on a rookie entering the NFL? Well, in some ways, maybe it's not. But he was the number 2 overall pick for a reason. And there's also a reason the Jets passed on Reese and other high caliber players. And that's because the Jets believe Bailey can be a star. Now, as we've gotten deeper into the draft process, one of the things that I've said over and over is that this is not a typical year. And I don't think Bailey's a prospect on the level of, say, Aiden Hutchinson 4 years ago, or, the Bosa brothers, Joey Bosa, who was drafted in 2016, or Nick Bosa, who was drafted in 2019. I don't think he's Myles Garrett from 2017, but he's still a really good prospect. And I don't think you necessarily need to be an all-pro to be the sort of guy who can change a defense, the sort of guy who can give offenses problems. And that's the sort of guy the Jets have lacked for a really long time. I mean, we had the Bryce Huff season. We had the Jermaine Johnson season. You want to go back, there were a couple of decent Calvin Pace seasons. But in many ways, the Jets have been searching for a dominant edge rusher for close to 2 decades, ever since exactly 20 years ago. In fact, John Abraham left. The Jets traded John Abraham that offseason, the 2006 offseason, after giving him the franchise tag. They ended up getting a first-round pick in return. It was a 3-team trade with the Falcons and the Broncos. And the Jets ended up using the pick they got from Abraham to select Nick Mangold. So, the trade actually worked out pretty well for the Jets. But what has not worked out is the Jets' inability to get to the quarterback from the edge. The years the Jets have had good pass rushes, the Rex Ryan years where they manufactured a lot of pressure, that helped. There was that stretch with Robert Saleh where they had a lot of good defensive ends, but they never had that dominant guy. And that's what the Jets are looking for with David Bailey. And there's been a lot of talk about whether Aaron Glenn's going to run a 3-4 defense. And the truth is more complicated. Glenn himself has said that there are going to be elements of the 3-4 and elements of the 4-3. But looking at the personnel moves the Jets have made this offseason, they've added a lot of guys who they want to be sturdy in the run game. I think that's where Joseph Osai and Kingsley Enagbare are. And those guys are edge players, but they're not great pass rushers. And the classic 3-4 defense really depended on one edge rusher, one guy to be able to get home, because most of the guys in the front seven were dedicated to kind of clogging running lanes. And then once the lanes were secure, they could try and collapse the pocket. But you had that one edge guy who you depended on to get home. Now, there are questions about Bailey. People have noted that he's not the most dominant player as a run defender, but I think if you look at his college stats, he made a lot of good plays against the run. I've heard the Will McDonald comparison thrown out there. McDonald's a guy who struggled quite a bit against the run. I don't think those comparisons are fair to Bailey. First of all, Bailey's bigger. Bailey's 10 to 15 pounds bigger than McDonald. McDonald's one of the smallest edge players in the NFL. Bailey's not big. Bailey's not actually on the smaller side himself, but he's not as small as McDonald. I think he's sturdier against the run. And again, I think with pro coaching, he can potentially not be a weakness. He can potentially not be a guy who, I don't know that he's ever going to be a dominant edge guy against the run. And that's part of the reason, he's not quite on the level of some of the guys who typically go in this range of the draft. But I think he can get to a point where he's not a liability. And his job's not really going to be to shut down the run. That's what everyone else is for. Bailey's job is going to be to get to the quarterback and hopefully make everybody else's job easier, particularly the guys who are playing coverage, because the Jets traded Sauce Gardner at the deadline, and they obviously got 2 first-round picks in return. I think part of the reason they traded Sauce Gardner was they felt that they could figure out the cornerback position without dedicating so many resources, without dedicating a $30 million a year contract. Well, one way you make your defense better, one way you make it easier to play coverage is having a guy who can consistently get to the quarterback, having a guy who can constantly live in the other team's backfield. And that's what the Jets are going to depend on David Bailey to do. He is now the number 1 pass rusher on this team, and the Jets are going to hope he's a star. And look, I know there are lots of Jets fans who are disappointed today because this was a passionate debate in the fan base. Some people really wanted Arvell Reese. They were down on Bailey. Conversely, some people really wanted Bailey. They were down on Arvell Reese. I think you have to take it as it comes. Every prospect who's picked in the first round has a shot of being good. Every prospect has a shot of being bad. And the fact Arvell Reese was actually picked by the Giants is going to add fuel to the fire. We'll hear these two compared for years to come. But ultimately, I understand why the Jets did it, because what the Jets needed, I think, was, and I think the way the Jets viewed this, it was, we needed a pass rusher. We need a guy we know can get to the quarterback. We need a guy who we can depend on, a guy who's not a work in progress as a pass rusher. And that's what the Jets tried to get with David Bailey.
The NFL draft is this week, and every pick is a tradable moment on Kalshi. The second round starts up tonight, and if you've got a hunch on who your team will take, you can trade it over at Kalshi. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. Trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi. Kalshi. Trade on anything. Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NFL. The Titans shook up the top of the draft by taking Ohio State wideout Carnell Tate at number 4 overall. Tyler Rowland with Locked On Titans lays out what that means for the future in Tennessee.
The Tennessee Titans shocked the world and me and took Carnell Tate at number 4 overall in the NFL draft. I think it is a pick that serves Cam Ward. It's what's best for Cam Ward. He does have a perfect skill set for what the Titans offense needs, but I do have some questions about his alpha upside going forward. Now, before we get into all of it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, now is the perfect time to be one. But with that being said, again, the Tennessee Titans take Carnell Tate throughout the entire process. We're like, okay, maybe Carnell Tate. He was one of the guys I did in my mock draft trio. They could just take the best offensive weapon on the board. But as we got through the back end of the process, you only heard Carnell Tate mentioned. I think Peter Schrager said that Carnell Tate was maybe a backstop, and Carnell Tate was always that side option that never really was taken seriously. It was going to be Jeremiah Love. It was going to be one of the edge rushers. It was going to be Sonny Styles all week. Not only did the Tennessee Titans pass on Sonny Styles, not for Jeremiah Love, not for an edge rusher, they passed on Sonny Styles for a wide receiver. So we know that that was clearly smoke screen the entire time. But you look at Carnell Tate, and again, I think the obvious logic for the Carnell Tate pick is we need to support Cam Ward. For all of you people saying, how can they not take offense? How are we going to score points? How are you going to make your young quarterback better? How do you support Cam Ward and get him to his potential? Look at the group that they have right now. You are rewarded by this pick of Carnell Tate, and it's clear that Mike Borgonzi was standing on the table saying, no, we are going to help our young quarterback. Now, I do believe that if Jeremiah Love would have fell one more spot, if Jeremiah Love got to number 4, I think the Tennessee Titans were going to pick him. But I think when the Titans got on the board, they said, we are going to take the best offensive weapon because that's what our quarterback desperately needs. That's what our team desperately needs. That's how our offense is going to be able to score points and keep us in football games. And it's clear that all of the conversations that we had, if you were somebody in the comments saying, we just hired a defensive coach, we have a guy who should improve the defense, we spent a bunch of money on the defense, we already had Jeffrey Simmons and Cedric Gray on the defense. We don't need more defense. We need more offense. We need somebody who can score the ball and put points up and help Cam Ward. That's what this team really needs to get wins and get better. We have enough on defense with coaching and talent that we already have there. If you were someone who was saying that over and over throughout the draft process, you were right. You have been rewarded. The Titans said, we're not going to be okay with just having this dominant defense. Oh, great. Let's add a pass rusher. Let's add Arvell Reese. Let's add Sonny Styles and get Robert Saleh his perfect middle linebacker. No, they said, we're not doing that. We think that Carnell Tate is worthy of the number 4 pick because not only is he a good player in and of himself, but he helps our young quarterback. And that brings me to Carnell Tate, 6'2", 192 pounds, out of Ohio State, 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, 10.25-inch hands, 21.3 years old. I compared him to Alec Pierce. I think that Carnell Tate is an Alec Pierce type player. Would you take Alec Pierce at number 4? Because the elephant in the room here is I had Carnell Tate on my hate tier. I did not want the Tennessee Titans to take Carnell Tate at number 4. I thought that's overvalued. I thought that was a Corey Davis type pick. I don't know if Carnell Tate can be that alpha, and we'll talk about why at the end of the episode. But outside of that, you look at his build, you look at his skill set, it does make sense. Like, he does fit perfectly. And I think my complaint the entire time throughout the process with Carnell Tate was the upside of Carnell Tate and the upside of a player that you should pick at number 4. You look at Jeremiah Love, could be one of the top 5 running backs in the entire NFL. I think Arvell Reese could be one of the top 5 edge rushers. Sonny Styles could be one of the top 5 middle linebackers in the NFL. Can Carnell Tate be one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL? My answer is no. I don't see that out of Carnell Tate. So again, we'll talk about why I'm worried about the long-term upside of Carnell Tate and it paying off for the number 4 pick. But also one thing that we talk about is this isn't a great draft class. Isn't that something that we've talked about throughout the entire process? This draft class doesn't have the high-end blue chip talent that you would normally see at the top of an NFL draft, or that you would want to see at the top of an NFL draft. So if that's the case, and we know that this draft is down, is picking number 4 really like picking number 4? Isn't the Titans' number 4 pick really like a number 10 pick, if we're honest with the quality of this draft class? So would you take Carnell Tate at number 4? Would you help Cam Ward? That's really what it comes down to. So you can see the logic of why the Tennessee Titans would have gotten to a point where they're like, hey, we're going to go with this incredibly reliable, incredibly professional, incredibly polished wide receiver who, from a build standpoint, fits perfectly into the group that we have right now. Again, think about the alignment and the way that it works. You have Calvin Ridley and Chim Dike, who can both play the Z. They can also play the slot, but you have Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot. So you have those 3 guys who can do Z and slot and have a good combination and a good rotation there. You go to the X wide receiver position, you have Alec Iomanor. And listen, I'm high on Alec Iomanor. I think that Iomanor can be a good player and a helpful player. But last year he had drop issues. There was a reason that he dropped as far as he did in the draft. You bring in Carnell Tate to now play that X wide receiver. And look, Carnell Tate can play any position. You could put Carnell Tate in as a big slot. You could let Carnell Tate go in motion across the formation and be a Z wide receiver. He could do all of that for you as well. So it's like you're getting a versatile vertical weapon for your quarterback. And you look at Arvell Reese. He's a tweener. Is he going to be able to live up to his potential as an edge rusher and be worth it? If he's just a pretty good off-ball linebacker, I don't think Arvell Reese as an off-ball linebacker is worth the number 4 pick. I wouldn't have taken him at number 4 if I knew that he wasn't going to play edge. So if they're worried about that, Sonny Styles, he is a great middle linebacker prospect. I think he went to the Washington Commanders. Arvell Reese went to the New York Giants. I think that Sonny Styles is a great linebacker prospect, but also at the same time, does he play with the violence? Does he play with the downhill mentality that Robert Saleh is going to want? That's a question. So instead of having a question on all of these defenders, just go with the offensive weapon that doesn't have questions. Carnell Tate does not have a lot of questions about whether he's going to be good. The question about Carnell Tate is whether he's going to be great. Can Tate be great? That's the real question with Carnell Tate. But we know he's going to be good. We know he's going to be solid. And I think he loves football a little bit more than Corey Davis did. So I know a lot of people are like, this is Corey Davis all over again. And I'm not going to be here to say that it's not. That was my concern coming in too. I'm not going to change my tune. I'm excited for Carnell Tate, and I'm excited that the Tennessee Titans are helping Cam Ward. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what this selection is about. It's about helping Cam Ward. And that's what the Titans have dedicated themselves to doing right now, is helping Cam Ward, supporting their young quarterback, building on the future, and make sure that they can maximize the most important person in their organization, and that's Cam Ward. And look, at the end of the day, I think that Carnell Tate is Cam Ward's perfect fit as a wide receiver in this draft.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 NFL. If you follow basketball or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and on campus going up every week just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA or the Big 3 in 30 College wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 in 30 NFL.